An eye-catching YouGov poll, reported exclusively by Sky News, reveals that Labour's standing has slipped to its lowest approval level of this Parliament. The numbers paint a stark picture. Labour stands on just 20%, now trailing behind Reform UK and mere points ahead of the Conservatives. What does this say about the current political landscape? Let's break it down. According to Sky News, a fresh YouGov poll for Sky News puts Labour on 20% of the vote, just ahead of the Conservatives and trailing behind Nigel Farage's Reform UK, which leads at 28% of the vote. That's the headline, a sharp drop to 20%. Labour's lowest since the general election last year. Reform UK leads with 28%, while the Conservatives lag at 17%. At first glance, this suggests Labour's support is eroding. The party that won a landslide in 2024 now stands dangerously close to being overtaken by a relatively new party. A blunt indicator that the political ground has shifted. But it's important to remember that Labour's landslide was always a shallow one. Despite securing over 400 seats, the party only won around a third of the popular vote, the lowest share ever to deliver such a majority. Much of that victory came from the collapse of Conservative support and tactical voting, rather than genuine enthusiasm for Keir Starmer's project. That helps explain why Labour's so-called honeymoon period never really materialised. They entered office with a commanding majority, but without the broad mandate or excitement that usually accompanies a sweeping win. Instead, they've faced immediate pressure from both the left and the right, leaving their position more fragile than the seat numbers suggest. Despite leading Labour to one of the largest parliamentary victories in modern time, Sir Keir Starmer continues to face a persistent critique, and that critique is that he lacks a genuine base of true believers. Unlike Tony Blair in 1997 or Jeremy Corbyn in 2017, Starmer has not inspired the kind of dedicated grassroots enthusiasm that fuels a political movement. Analysts highlight that Blair's 1997 victory was propelled by a wave of optimism. Cool Britannia and New Labour captured the national mood and drew widespread excitement. Corbyn, though he lost in 2017, mobilised millions of younger and more radical voters, building a fervent following around his vision. Leading up to the election, Starmer's support was built more on competence over charisma. He was viewed as pragmatic and steady, but not someone who inspired excitement or galvanised voters around a bold ideological vision. Critics argued that this left him as the default option, a safe pair of hands, but not a leader who sparked a mass cause worth rallying behind. This may explain why Labour's post-election honeymoon quickly faded. Without a deeply loyal base, Starmer has faced pressure almost immediately, from the left through Corbynite holdouts and the Greens, and from the right via Reform UK and the Conservatives. The electoral numbers support this critique. In 2017, Jeremy Corbyn's Labour, despite defeat, won 12,877,918 votes, 40% of the total. Starmer's victorious Labour in 2024, by contrast, received 9,708,716 votes, or 33.7%. In raw numbers and share of the vote, Corbyn commanded significantly more public backing, even though he fell short in seats. This fuels the argument that Starmer's landslide majority in Parliament masks a much thinner base of popular enthusiasm. He won power, but without the momentum of a movement behind him. A politician requiring a base of true believers is not unique to British politicians. In the United States, presidents typically maintain a fiercely loyal bloc of supporters, most famously Donald Trump's MAGA movement, who back their leader unconditionally, regardless of political storms. Barack Obama in 2008 also commanded a passionate grassroots following of true believers the Yes We Can movement, built around themes of hope and change. It mobilised millions of young people, first-time voters, and small donors who felt deeply invested in his candidacy. By contrast, Starmer lacks that kind of unwavering movement-style loyalty. His support proved broad enough to win, but it was shallow, leaving critics to question how resilient it will prove when tested. And this is now being tested, as reflected in the latest polling numbers. With Sir Keir Starmer's party now on 20% of the vote, the lowest level since last year's general election, and just 3 points ahead of the Conservatives on 17%, ministers have been pressed to explain the slump. Nick Thomas-Symonds, the EU Relations Minister, told Sky News' Anna Jones that the government had been forced to take very difficult decisions to stabilise the public finances early in this parliament. The decisions Nick could be referring to could include the rise in employer national insurance, changes to pension allowances, controversial reforms to disability benefits such as PIP, and the tightening of eligibility for the winter fuel allowance before an eventual partial reversal. Each of these measures was defended as fiscally necessary to restore stability, but they drew criticism from different quarters. Businesses warned higher national insurance would suppress hiring. Pensioners were angered at losing long-standing support with their fuel bills. And disability groups accused the government of unfairly targeting the vulnerable. Adding to this picture, the UK Labour government, under Chancellor Rachel Reeves, announced a £40 billion tax increase in its October 2024 budget, the largest tax-raising budget since 1993. The handling of the winter fuel allowance in particular caused political damage. Initially, the government restricted eligibility to only the poorest pensioners, but following a public outcry and pressure from within Labour ranks, it was forced into a partial U-turn to restore support to most retirees. Similarly, proposed changes to PIP sparked one of the largest backbench rebellions of Starmer's premiership so far, with MPs warning the reforms risked punishing disabled people and undermining trust in Labour's commitment to social justice. In essence, Labour is paying a political price for front-loading tough economic measures. The government insists these steps were taken with the country's long-term interests in mind. But the immediate backlash, including public anger, internal dissent, and messy U-turns, is now showing up starkly in the polls. Let's unpack the implications. A fracturing party landscape, with Labour down to 20% and Reform leading at 28%, traditional two-party politics is breaking apart. What was once a Labour versus Conservative dynamic is now Labour versus Reform, or even a three-way scramble. Nigel Farage's Reform UK is capitalising on dissatisfaction, particularly around migration, economic frustration, and public trust. Their lead isn't just about Labour's slide. It suggests they're offering something different that resonates with voters. On the 26th of August, Nigel Farage set out Reform UK's plans to tackle illegal migration, an issue currently among the top three concerns for voters, alongside the cost of living and the NHS. Farage criticised the government for failing to act, highlighting record small boat crossings and the rising costs for taxpayers. The announcement was positioned as a central pillar of Reform UK's campaign. Conservative obscurity, at 17%, the Conservatives have slipped into third place, caught in the crossfire. Their base seems squeezed by Reform's surge and Labour's historical monopoly on centre-left support. This poll is a reminder of how quickly public trust can shift. A dominant government today can be fragile tomorrow when facing economic strain, leadership scrutiny, and alternative parties positioning themselves as better options. Whether this is a red alert moment or a mid-term wobble, it's a reality check for Labour and a signal that Reform UK has momentum. Across Westminster, everyone will be watching what comes next. especially around economic messaging, migration policy, and public sentiments. Thank you for watching. If you found this video insightful, don't forget to like, leave a comment, and subscribe for more updates.